Shalom, ladies and gentlemen. Today is also we'll be talking about our weekly Torah portion, Parshas Toldot. And there is one term, one idea that is constantly mentioned in our weekly Torah portion. It's actually all about it. It's about a blessing. But what is blessing? Is it a magical mantra that makes everything go away, or opposite, everything to come true? Maybe it's a recommendation, it's a suggestion, maybe it's some good wish. Our weekly Torah portion doesn't bring the clarity to what the idea of the blessing is, what's behind this term that we call blessing. In the culmination of our weekly Torah portion, Yaakov changing his clothes and dress up as Esav and present himself as Esav to his father to receive the firstborn blessing that Yitzchak prepared for Esav. Or actually, maybe Yitzchak knew that it's Yaakov and gave him a right blessing, and it was all for show. But why do we need the show? Esav comes later on in, and Yitzchak trembles, and he's scared that he gave the wrong blessing to Yaakov and cannot give the right blessing to Esav. Or maybe it's also all for the show, and he wants Esav not to feel bad, and it was all mistake, and he's afraid that Esav will revenge Yaakov for this. But there's something prior to this that make all this mix-up happen. It's our mother Rivka who decides that his beloved son, and Torah literally tells us that Yaakov was her favorite, should receive the firstborn blessing from his father Yitzchak, and she convinces Yaakov to change his clothes and present himself as Esav. But why Rivka decided to go on this masquerade and to make all this mixed up, that actually later on became a reason for many historical events throughout our history. Rivka probably heard the voice of God, because in the beginning of our Torah portion we read about a complicated pregnancy of Rivka with two sons. We didn't have ultrasound and gynecologists back then, but she went to the yeshiva to ask from God, and in meditation she received the voice from God that to explain to her, like an ultrasound, that she has a twins. But the most important, it says in the Torah an interesting phrase that God tells Rivka, Rav Yavot Tzair, that the older will serve the younger. And maybe because of Rivka understood these words in this way, she thought that means Yaakov was a younger son, and he should receive the blessing of the firstborn, and he made all these combinations and intrigue in Yitzchak's and Rivka's home. But the problem is that God also doesn't make it very clear, because exactly the same phrase, Rav Yavot Tzair, you could literally translate all the way 180 degrees different way and translate that the oldest will be worshipped by the youngest. And Yaakov himself doesn't make it easier for us, because in the middle of the Torah portion we read how he purchased the right of the firstborn from Esav. He gives him a soup, and Esav said, okay, take the firstborn right, but first of all, how can you change the physiological fact that somebody was born before and somebody was born later with a bowl of soup? I don't know, maybe it was some genetical engineering known to the Jewish people back then, unlike today. But also it raises another question. If it was a question of the legal right, and Yaakov bought this legal right, so why do we need all this masquerade with Rivka and Yitzchak and Esav if Yaakov owned this blessing, so he would just had to rightfully come to his father and take this blessing? Or maybe none Esav, none Yitzchak, not Rivka, not us today correctly understand what the blessing is. And maybe Yaakov also didn't understand it back then, but he understood it later on. In 2 weeks we will read about his fight with the Esav angel, and then his encounter with his brother 20 years later. And in this encounter he gives Esav numerous very specific gifts, and he bounds to him for 7 times, and this correlates with the blessings of his father. And it seems, and our sages say, that he kind of returned the blessing that Esav maybe think that he stole from him to Esav. or he actually saying something much more important? He knew one very important idea, principle that is mentioned in Babylonian Talmud. Later on, it says, "Molichim et ha'adam bederech sherotzeh ba." The person is guided on the road that he chooses by himself. What does it mean? It means that the blessing, it's not showing the direction. The most important thing, that you will choose your path. You will walk on path that you chose. And the blessing, it's like a good wind into your back that helps you to go on this road. But most important thing, you have to make a choice. You have to go on the path that you choose, and then any blessing will work. Good luck. Thank you. I see you next week.